Hello, book lovers. How are you doing? Welcome back to Procrastinate with Books. I hope you are ready to uncover the mysteries and discoveries that I actually had in September. But honestly speaking, though, I don't think September was that good. It was pretty average in terms of the reads I had. But nevertheless, I'm actually glad that I got to still read a chunk of books rather than just reading one or reading none. I'm glad that the reading slump phase hit me in the second half of the month, and that's why I was still able to cover a lot of books before that. Without any further ado, let's quickly jump in and discover the power of words and imagination. Starting off with the least favorite, I have Manhattan Moon, which involves a setup of mythical creatures along with some supernatural creatures that are coexisting in the human world, and where they have to keep their identities secret so that they don't basically get hunted down by the other parties. And in amidst those settings, our protagonist is introduced who's having a lot of difficulties accepting who that person is, and on top of that, they fell in love with a human, and then there's this complicated relationship dynamics of keeping secrets and falling in love where you're not supposed to do. So there's a forbidden troop and a mythical arena. However, the story was just gaining pace, and then after a certain turn, when you would expect the story to bloom further, it actually ends, which made me pretty mad because I wasn't expecting such an abrupt ending from the book, considering that it does not even have a next part announced yet, and I don't know what we are supposed to do this half cooked meal basically. Next up, we have the Flying Squadron's first book, which is The Good Girl, and this one's based on a setting in the French court around 16th century, I think. And here, a girl is basically recruited to be a part of Queen's sideline girls who basically go out there and discover things and report back to her. And for that, they might have to go through several kinds of means and might have to be in compromising positions to gain insights but attain their survival in the courts. And that's what is discovered. And it also has a huge influence of the actual war that happened between French, Dutch, Englishmen, and all those people. And it's been discussed in around here. This one was a graphic novel, but somehow I did feel that the story was not able to hit the benchmark, primarily because it was neither able to satisfy the war side story of it, nor was it able to completely focus on the woman's attempt at survival of the court scenario. So it was a mixture of two, but neither good at either one of them. So that's why it was a pretty average read. Up next, we have The Cat in the Kimono, which is another great graphic novel. This one, however, is inspired from a Japanese literature story, and they say it was supposed to be true at some point of time. Anyways, the story here is about this very young, beautiful girl who captures the heart of a weaver, and so for her, he actually weaves a silk kimono with cats on it, and she absolutely loves it that she wears it almost every other day, more frequently than others. But when he attempts to actually share his feelings to her, she actually discards him, saying that, oh, he's probably driving me mad, and she just disregards his feeling altogether. And that's where he becomes angry and he decides to strike a revenge. And that's where he creates another kimono with mice on it and just goes around loitering in the streets in front of her. And that's where something very strange happened. The cats from the kimono actually pop out and start chasing those mice. And one of those cats actually gets distracted and gets carried away altogether into the different world. From there onward, the journey of this cat is shown to you. Which places does this cat go to and what happens there? Only part that actually felt a little disappointing to me was the way the transitions in the books were handled, and especially the places where a cat goes from one place to another and the story is basically transitioning in that area, that instead of actually showing a complete picture or at least some information, there was just a black page, flat out black page in the graphic novel, which was like, okay, chapter 2, a new beginning, something of that sort. But at least they should have written where we are going, where we are. It's just absolutely left up to the reader's imagination to figure out what's happening in there. Next up, we had The Summer House Mystery by Eva Poehler, and though the story was overall really good, I got a hint that I have read such kind of a story before for some or the other reason. This one also was hosted in a haunted house where they went on a vacation and strange things started happening suddenly, and then they had to sort out the mystery so that the ghost would be at peace. So that was the basic plot line, and I think now I have read several other books with the same theme line, and that's why I wasn't very astonished by the way the story turned out. From a paranormal events point of view, there was a really good element I would call out about the diary of the person who's dead, and he was just trying for them to figure out what he's trying to say without actually speaking much. And there was this whole chasing around by the police stuff, which I think they got away pretty easily. So there were some ups and downs in the story, but overall, it was a fine read. Titan Chronicles, the book one, Journey of the Destiny, was the longest journey I think I ever had. Oh my god, it was really long. Okay, that was one of my major complaints because it was really long and things were happening, but the story was not going anywhere, which was the disappointing part. However, the good part is that if you keep up with the book for almost 50% of it, things would then start turning fruitful from there, and you would understand where the story is trying to take you from there, because before that there's a lot of to and fro between two characters, backstory and present time story. So there are four stories and you have to patch that up together and make sense out of it, which is a little difficult. Plus, I also had a complaint that this book actually ends on a cliffhanger, so keep that up. But good part is the new book is already out, so you can go check that out. For me, I think I'll take a little breather from this book because the first half of this book was like dragging myself to the road just to complete this book, and here was nothing. It was like कोई जंगल में जा रहा है, अड़चने आ रही हैं, वो अड़चनों को पार कर रहा है और कभी उसे कोई पकड़ ले रहा है, कभी कोई पकड़ ले रहा है, पर आगे कुछ हो ही नहीं रहा है, बस वो जंगल में जा रहे हैं और कुछ ना कुछ हो रहा है, तो पता नहीं क्या ही हो रहा है. So it was a little too much effort from my end, and that's why I did not really enjoy it a lot. It could probably work for someone who is okay with a slow paced book, but considering that I was already moving into the slump, this book actually triggered it further, and that's why I didn't enjoy it that much. Next up, we have Down a Bad Road, and the title should have been a hint to me that you're going to go on a bad road, but little experimental me decided to read it anyway. So let's start off with the story first, and then we'll get to what worked and what did not. The story here is about the guy named Ron who basically wanted to simply get married only for love and not just for the sake of getting married. And then Lavender enters her life, Lavender, and they amazingly fall in love with each other and start to crook up their life. But his childhood friend Martha, who has always had a thing for him, never allows him to actually, get settled with anybody else. And she's that psycho kind of a person who would probably go around lurking in the dark and trying to lure you in by money, by charms, by whatever means possible, just so that nobody else could have him. And that's what she is trying to do in the entirety of this book. And this is a love triangle come thriller mystery kind of a book, which sadly did not work out for me, primarily because all the three characters in the book are the kind of people I would never want to cross path with, and I had a lot of issues with these characters. Let's start up with Lavender. One issue, name. How can you name someone with flowers? I really don't understand that concept of naming people Daisy and Lily and Lavender and Rose and whatnot. Does not work. Okay, please pick better names. Number two, she is just a manipulative who is so calculative about every action she takes that she does not have to work ever for the rest of her life by charming the right person into her life so that her life is totally sorted and she can live all those manicured hands and designer bags days for the rest of her life. So I absolutely hated her. The second one was Ron. He was so confused. He was not in the mindset of being in the relationship. He does not know how to stay loyal in a relationship. He is continuously jumping beds here and there, which is a turn off, big turn off. The other thing was the psycho killer in here, who for once had a little element to her which made things interesting. I think otherwise it would be a really challenging task to go through this book. She made things a little interesting, but then again, she's a psycho killer and she's a total psycho lover too. So I don't know if I should be even liking her, but she was the best character available amongst the mix that was presented in this book. And that hotel is actually managed by a young widow who has a small child, and she's trying to look after the child and manage the hotel, and she's feeling miserably and having a very hard time. And somehow they start interacting with each other, and then new secrets come into the picture, and they get a view of something that has stayed buried for almost 2 generations now. And that's where the whole mystery, relationship dynamics, and a sweet little story is picked up. Overall, the story was pretty entertaining and interesting too. Nothing much bad happened. Only the part where everything, closes up in that sweet little circle, which feels like a little unreal for the real life, considering that it was a contemporary. Apart from that, everything was pretty good. This is how we end things here was an amazing thriller. I think it was the best out of the lot from thriller's perspective. This one has a setting of based in North Carolina somewhere, and everything is closed for winters except for the researchers who are conducting some really mind-twinkling research about some topics that lie in the gray areas and wouldn't be considered entirely, how should I say, they're trying to understand the psychology of people behind lying. How do liars work? How do their minds work? And how are liars actually developed in the society? So, that kind of tests they are running, which are a part of certain unethical research groups. And that's where the researchers have their heads buried in their studies. And a killer is actually lurking around who is a total psycho, and or she is a total psycho for that matter. And things are just running around in an academic setting and a thriller vibe. This one did give me really goose chills on my arm, and it was pretty good. The Witchfinder's Serpent is a story that spans across multiple timelines from what happened in the past to the current day story, where Nate is basically warning up around the settings where he has to live decently, and he's living with his aunt Celia, who precisely mentioned not to touch any of her things. And as kids are, he just went poking around and found this weird bracelet. As soon as he picks it up to take a look at it, the bracelet immediately gets attached to his wrist and refuses to come off. And now he tries basically everything and fails miserably, and there is no other option than to simply contact her aunt Celia and ask her how to get it off, because he has been having these vivid dreams and signs that a ancient creature is about to come and take his bracelet back, because it was taken by Aunt Celia very long time ago, and now he just doesn't know how to safeguard himself or take off the bracelet. Overall story pretty good, setup really good, timeline management also pretty good. If I have to summarize the overall experience, I would just say one line: you won't see it coming. This one is a combination of historical fiction triggered in with a mystery thriller vibe, where there's a killer in the loose in a small town location. People are dwindled a lot because of the effects of the war, and war is taking a toll on everybody, from the people left behind to people who actually went forward to, fight the wars. And amongst that small town setting is Nora's family, where she and her children are trying to survive their level best. And that's where a certain opportunity opens to women so that they can also be a contributor in this overall affair, and women start going to certain amount of jobs, and that's where a person really gets pissed off, because women are taking up certain jobs and they are not doing what they are supposed to do, that is stay in their homes and take care of the child. And someone is killing all the women workers around in the town, and people are just trying to safeguard their own lives rather than their jobs right now. A few elements I think that really drove this book to success would be first, the point of view of women being addressed quite prominently based on the struggles that they have to face. It also includes LGBT tropes and gay characters into the story and what actually happened to them in case anybody around them got to know about them. The Puzzle of Blackstone Lodge would be an appropriate title for this book because this book was really puzzling with so many characters, so many timelines being involved, and the mystery being solved in the present timeline, considering everything and everybody that happened in the whole past was like a true mystery, and your brain would just go like a bull in the mouth of a cat, dwindling here and then and creating a whole mess out of the situation, and you just won't understand where the story is headed for some time. But it's good that the author concludes it in a way that you actually understand and you're able to correlate with the factors that they are persistently telling you to focus upon, and that's something that worked well considering the complicated level of plot this book had. You can try to solve the mystery as you go along in the book by creating a maze yourself and keeping tracks of all the characters and what they did. Maybe you might have a success. I sadly did not have a success, but I did find this book really good. This one is a really short, cute, and festive book that you could probably read out aloud to your children on Thanksgiving. I think it would be a wonderful story to be shared across, focused around Tad Lincoln, who is the son of Abraham Lincoln, was a very mischievous boy in real times, and the story is inspired from those real events of showcasing what happens when a little child gets attached to something that is supposed to be sacrificed on Thanksgiving, a turkey that is, and that's where the whole tradition of forgiving one turkey to let them go and live their lives rather than being slaughtered is started by Abraham Lincoln. And in reality, when Abraham Lincoln actually started the whole tradition of Thanksgiving by, uplifting the spirits of people around them during the war times, I think it was a really great initiative. The good part in this book is that once the story is over, there's also an author interview that is included in, where he shares the insights of where this whole story was inspired from, what his point of view is regarding the story. And considering that it was such a small story, I think if you really have to make short stories, at least look deep into how you conclude them. This book would be an epitome of perfect closure. I think the story was closed really beautifully. Despite how short the book was, there was enough for the reader to gauge in that the story is moving towards the end. And that was a wrap. That were all the books that I got to read in September, and you can have a look at the complete picture in here. And if you've made so far into the video, leave me a leaf emoji in the comment down below. I really hope that October turns out to be pretty good for all of us and we have a much better reading session than this one, and we do discover some really amazing works of literature and other books too. I'm currently reading The Big 100, which is turning out to be pretty interesting, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed for that. All I would like to say to you would be that just stay curious, stay passionate about reading, and keep those pages turning. And I'll catch up with you in our next chapter. Until then, keep your coffees warm and your TBRs long. Goodbye.